thing that I like to do sometimes is to have a walk down the seafront. You haven't seen maybe the Geelong seafront, but very beautiful. But throughout the years, as I've been walking down the seafront, I've looked at an old sailing ship come through. It's a little sailing ship called the Enterprise, so it's an Australian-built replica. And as I look at this sailing ship from the shore, it's marvellous just to see the wind getting in its sails. You like the sailing ships? And the wind going through its sails. And it makes a lovely postcard picture as you're watching it from the shore. But as beautiful as this lovely sailing ship is, I've got to say that I'm a little bit embarrassed because I cannot swim. I cannot swim at all. Meaning that the sea is only something that I can look at from the shore. And so I don't usually enter the sea. So I would not make a good seafarer. Well, but I guess I'm not on my own. You see, a long time ago, a man named John wrote the book of Revelation. And it's a strange book, which is because it has these unexplainable visions in this book. And so because it is strange, in some ways, lots of Christians don't like to read it. Does that make sense? And but then when I get to the end of this book, we are given some glimpses into what heaven is like. Got it? And did you notice in that reading it says, and there will be no more sea. Got it? And there will be no more sea. Now the ancient people of Israel, they weren't sailors. They didn't like the sea. And they were frightened of the sea. And they believed, that the sea represents all kinds of chaos. And in some of their poetry, they wrote about the sea monsters. It was their poetry of expressing the sea. And so this lovely reading is saying, there will be no more sea monsters. No more sea monsters. Now, it's been 2,000 years since that was written. 2,000 years. And so I guess we look at the sea in different ways. We've got different viewpoints on it. Let me tell you a few which I think to be true. You see, the seas and oceans, they occupy 3/4 of the globe space. 3/4. And this prevents much of the world from being occupied by people. And the seafarer who's out in that sea can feel the loneliness that comes from being cut off from others. Is that right? While sailing the oceans. And then there's danger all around. Sometimes there are terrible winds all over the place. And so one can easily be tossed about in great sea storms. And then for the seafarer, there is a tendency always to be alert. Does that make sense? You always have to be alert because, if you're not alert, you could slip, couldn't you? You just need water on the deck and it's easy to fall. And then, of course, we think about the sea and the seafarer. There's the absence of family and long separation. And if you talk to any seafarer, they're saying they're counting the months of reaching home. Isn't that right? We count the days, we count the months. So, and then of course finally, there's chance of these massive tsunamis. We've heard that's a new word now, tsunami. And they can have terrible consequences for those who are situated in the tidal rush. So there's all kinds of dangers about the sea. But then in this little verse, there is a real message of hope for all those who have faith in a Heavenly Father. Does that make sense? This is a message of hope. You see, if we think about it, when the oceans separate and divide peoples, when Jesus Christ returns to earth, at the end of the time, there will be no more division. Isn't that nice? No more separation. And while the seas in the ancient days were a portrayal of evil and chaos, its removal is a symbol of death and being on our guard. So then, the little verse, do you remember it? And there will be no more. Let's say it one more time in case you forget. And there will be no more sea. You see, this verse is going to symbolize the happy and the blessed state of God's people, and where at the end of time there will be no more sorrow and pain. So let's hold on to that eternal hope, and let's be encouraged about that. Let's always keep it in our minds as we think of the future, and there will be no more. Thank you.